Varis, Communications Manager for the Preservation Society of Newport County, and I'm sitting in for Trudy Cox today. She's the regular host of Inside the Newport Mansions. Our guest is the legendary French chef, author, culinary educator, TV personality, and artist, Jacques Pépin. Chef Pépin has appeared countless times on American television, has written for the New York Times, Food and Wine magazine, and has authored more than 30 cookbooks. He's been honored with 24 James Beard Foundation Awards, 5 honorary doctoral degrees, the American Public Television's Lifetime Achievement Award, the Emmy Award for Lifetime Achievement in 2019, and the Légion d'honneur, Legion of Honor, France's highest order of merit in 2004. I worked on that pronunciation. I hope that was close. In 2016, with his daughter Claudine and his son-in-law Raleigh Wesson, Jacques created the Jacques Pépin Foundation to support culinary education for adults with barriers to employment. On Sunday, September 22nd at Rosecliff, Chef Pépin will join his daughter Claudine for a sold-out event at Newport Wine and Food Festival entitled A Conversation with World-Renowned French Chef Jacques Pépin and Claudine Pépin. Today, we are lucky enough to have him for our own conversation. Welcome, Jacques.
Thank you. Welcome. You sure I did all that stuff?
I worked from a script that was provided, but you have such a long list of achievements. It's hard to condense it. We could spend 43 minutes reading off everything that you've accomplished.
See, I'm very old, so that's what happened when you're old.
Well, this is your 5th time. I think it's at least your 5th time at the Newport Mansions Wine and Food Festival. Can you talk a little bit about what makes the event so special?
Well, this is a very special place to go, and to go in those old mansions and so forth is really a great treat. And in addition to this, my daughter lives in Barrington, Rhode Island.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I live in Connecticut. I'm sure you can recognize that by Yankee drawl.
Yes, the Madison, Connecticut drawl.
Exactly. So we are pretty close to it, and I've been there many times before and after the convention or the festival there, and I really enjoy the area, the restaurant, the food, the sea.
Yeah. And the mansion, the Rosecliff, which was just redone. You'll see it probably. I'm not sure if you've seen it since it's been redone, but it's almost been restored to what it was when it was first built.
Wow. See.
And that makes it's a perfect setting for this event, sort of the end of the summer type event too.
Yes, I am used to in France. If you go in the Loire Valley and many areas, you have those beautiful chateaux, incredible house, dating back from the 16th, 17th, 18th century, but not really in America much, except there.
Yeah.
So it's a great thing to go there.
And it feels like the crowds are always very enthusiastic and receptive to being educated, which I think probably makes it pleasurable for someone like yourself who has so much to share.
Yeah, but if you give them enough wine, people are happy.
That helps for sure. What at this event that you're going to be hosting with your daughter, what should people, and it's sold out by the way, what should people expect? What should they look forward to?
I have absolutely no idea what we're going to talk about. My daughter probably will ask me questions. People ask questions, and we take it from there. I mean, it's never really, there is never anything rehearsed or whatever. I mean, we are cook, and I know in the last number of years, I know when I lived in Paris, when I came here, the cook was really at the bottom of the social scale. And now we are genius. So I don't know what happened with cook, but we're still a mashed potato maker, so you can take it too seriously.
Well, I know that you'll have plenty to speak about because you're going to be talking about your life experiences, and I want to get to a little bit of that later. But I also want to talk to you a little bit about the Jacques Pépin Foundation. You've spent so much of your life educating the public about culinary arts. When did you begin to start thinking about the impact culinary education might have on people who are facing employment challenges.
Well, employment challenges maybe a bit later, but certainly I did a book called La Technique, which came out in 1970, either 5 or 6, I forgot. At that point, there was a little bit of, it was kind of a woman liberation, organic gardening, health food store. People, many people are opening those small shop, with a cooking school in the back, utility equipment and so forth. So it was kind of new. And at that point, I remember I was writing La Technique. I thought maybe people should know. And I would go into giving a class and I peel a carrot. I never thought of it. And people said, wow, that's how you peel a carrot. Yes. I mean, all of a sudden, I have to write all those things down to kind of narrow down strictly the technique of cooking and proper technique of cooking. And it was a beginning to this. I mean, it came later that, I did 13 series of 26 shows for PBS for the last 45 years or so. And I've been teaching at BU at Boston University about 45 years also.
Yeah.
So, it was actually my son-in-law and my daughter who created the foundation, not me. He told me a few years ago, you've been teaching all your life. You have hundreds and hundreds of video and stuff. Who do you like to teach now? So I thought maybe people who have been a bit disenfranchised by life, people who come out of jail, homeless people, former drug addict, even veteran. So we teach through community kitchen a bit all over the country, actually, and with a proper video and a book and so forth. I feel like I certainly can train people in 6 weeks to peel potato and clean a salad and do an egg and, properly. And if that person likes it and stay in the little restaurant, maybe 5 years later, she or he is the chef, So and
Sure.
you have redone your life. And so it's a great thing to do, working with your hand. And, the kitchen is a great equalizer, so it's a good to work as a team, certainly.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I thought was really interesting, just watching some of the reading about the foundation, some of the different things that you talk about. You mentioned the kitchen is a great equalizer. Can you talk a little bit about what you mean by that?
Well, I mean that it's 11 o'clock and you have 100 people sitting down at 12. The color of the hand of the guy next to you doesn't really matter. You just have to move pretty fast. So we
Right.
have a motto who said, everyone look the same in the eye of the stove. And
Yes.
yes, it's true. So yes, so it is an equalizer in that sense. As eating with people, not only you cook, but you sit down, you eat, you exchange conversation. This has always been part of the proper political system. The eating together and inviting people and so forth. I don't know where Nehru, Tito, Macmillan, those were the head of state when I worked for the French president. And yes, that's important to have people sit down, share a bottle of wine and talk. And that point is much more polite usually. And so I feel that if there is a meeting to be done between the Republican and the Democrat, you should start by sharing a bottle of wine, sitting down at the table, eating together. You
Maybe
may
more than one bottle of wine.
You may still disagree, but it will be more polite and nicer.
Is it easy? You've been doing this for so long, going back to working in the kitchen when you were 13 years old, learning these techniques. Is it easy to think that everybody should know how to peel a carrot or cut up a potato, and those different? Is it one of those things where you almost have to step back and say, remind you? Well, I mean, now that you do it, I'm sure, but is it easy to assume that because you've been doing it for so long that's just everybody must know how to do this?
No, I don't think everybody should know how to do that.
Hmm,
It certainly help your life in the kitchen if you
sure.
go a bit faster and know how to do that. But it is essential for a professional. As I said, it's 11 o'clock. you have 100 people sitting down at 12, you're doing artichokes or whatever you do, you better do like three cases of those within an hour because people are sitting down. It's different than you're at home. Of course, you have more time, but still, for a home cook, if you work with the technique, you become better and better. It makes your life easier in the kitchen in terms of cleaning, in terms of organizing the food, in terms of cooking it to make it more fun.
I was watching some of the video testimonials of the students that have graduated from your program, and they are really powerful. What it must make you feel, it must be extremely rewarding for you to watch some of those videos and see what it's meant to younger people to go through your program.
Yes, it's very rewarding that without any question, when you know that you can change someone's life, I mean, I was Dean of Study at the French Culinary Institute in New York for 30 years almost. It's closed now. And I remember we gave scholarship, and usually the scholarship went to people who couldn't afford, of course, the
Sure.
price of the school, who had a little fortune. And you see people like that to come and didn't expect to have that type of opportunity. And you see them 5 years later. Now that guy or that girl are the chef in the restaurant. And you feel rewarded. I mean, you've changed someone's life for the better. So
I'm sure you must hear from some chefs who got their start through your program at some point. Have you met a few of them along the way?
oh yes, many chefs. Being a chef is you have to be generous. The chefs are very generous. I mean, cooking is basically an act of love. You cannot cook indifferently. You have to cook to give something, and it's a great thing. And the chefs usually are this way very generous. And yeah, I get many letter or meeting with chef and all that. Which, yeah, sure.
And I'm sure that means a lot to you.
Yes, of course. But since the beginning of the pandemic, something else that I have done, again, I didn't do it really. My daughter, Claudine, did it. She did Facebook. She said, why don't you do a show of like 3 minutes, 4 minutes to show people you have left over in the refrigerator to use this, that, too. So this is not really for professional. It's really for the home cook. And
Yeah,
we've done 380 of these, I think.
it's amazing.
We have like 2 million people on Facebook, so that's not for professional, but it's still a way of cooking something, makes it a bit easier, and so forth. So,
And I think the only other thing I want to ask about the foundation that I thought was interesting, your daughter made the point of saying that one of the things that's really special about the foundation is that these organizations put in a ton of work to get organized and to establish themselves and to start building something. And so it's even more special for you to come along with this foundation and be able to sort of help them take the next step. They got it going, and now you really giving them a shove forward.
yes, I mean, I have taught in jail, I've taught in different area, and certainly, if I had to advise someone, I would start saying, "Do you like to work with your hand?" I mean, it's you know, but maybe you want to be an electrician or a plumber, or a cabinet maker or whatever, something like that, or a cook. Now, if you're interested in cooking too, then yes, you're right, and you can always improve. I mean. I have been in the kitchen 80 years now, something like that.
Yeah, it's
and
amazing.
and you can always learn something. I cook with anyone and I would learn something. Sometimes I learned what not to do.
That's interesting too, that you still learn by cooking with other people occasionally.
Oh, sure, absolutely. There is always a way of looking at a piece of meat or at a tomato with a different eye. You say, gee, I wouldn't have thought of that. So, it's good.
You have an important birthday coming up, December of 2025, and that's also going to be play a part in promoting the work of your foundation.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about 90 for 90, the 90 for 90 celebration, and how people can get involved?
Well, again, this was created by my son-in-law, Rolly, like he did the foundation. He is a professional chef to start with, But about 14 years ago or so, he decided to teach, and he ended up at Johnson and Well at the school in Rhode Island there.
Sure.
And so he went to college anyway. But I said, if you are going to teach, maybe you should, and you won't pay for it now. So he did eventually get his master and a PhD a few years ago. So he's a full professor now, and a very good writer too. So he's the one who sort of doing the foundation, like this. And what was your question again?
Oh, no, just as far as the foundation, the 90 for 90 celebration, what it's about.
Right. So now it's created the 90 for 90. So for my 90th birthday, I hope I'll be alive still.
December of 2025.
So there is 90 chefs and other people all around the country who are doing a special party for me, from Tom Colicchio in New York to Daniel Boulou in New York to Thomas Keller in California, the French Laundry, and so forth, all to raise money for the foundation. But as I said, chefs are really, truly very generous this way.
That must mean a lot to you that a lot of your colleagues, because I was looking at the list of people that have signed on that are already going to be doing, events tied into 90 for 90. What does that mean to you to have so many of your colleagues kind of rally to kind of support you in this venture?
It's kind of amazing, and humbling in many ways. But as I said, that was created by Rolly, my son-in-law, and during in the last couple of years, he decided to, since we didn't have as much during the pandemic, as much time to raise money and move around, he decided to invite chefs to do a video for us to teach people their way. And from Jose Andres to Thomas Keller to Daniel Boulou to Richard Ray, and everyone say yes. And he asked another 60. They said yes, another 60. I think now we are 400
It's amazing.
people, from all the chefs you could think of in many restaurants probably will be there, who have given a video for that. And to join the foundation for a young chef, I think I'm not sure, but it's $40. It's $40 a year or something like that. So it's nothing. And they have access to all of those recipients, those 400 chefs, in addition to me. So that's a great source of learning, certainly.
Yeah, and it definitely it underscores what you've talked about, which is the generosity of chefs and the fact that you share so many recipes and cooking methods and all of the different things that you've done. When you think about a celebration, looking forward to a 90th birthday celebration, it underscores just how long you've been doing this. Do you ever step back and shake your head and think how food has impacted your life and all the different people you've met as a result and all the different things you've seen and done?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, I was born, not long before the Second World War. So my mother had a little restaurant, and this is where I probably learned how to be very miserly in the kitchen, because she could use absolutely everything. Nothing was thrown away too, which is standard in a French kitchen, but maybe even more for her. So the cooking of those women, Lyon, I come from Lyon in France, and it's very well known for the formidable women who become chef in Lyon, La Mère Brasier, Julia. Those are 3-star Michelin, very high, the highest on this. And Lyon is very well known for that. Well, I can see in my family 11 or 12 restaurants that I can think of, all of them run by women. Nothing, I was the first one on the male to go to that business. So, I have my aunt in Nantua, for example, next to Lyon, with a beautiful restaurant on the lake there. And I remember when I was chef for the president in Paris, so I go in vacation, go back to Lyon, go back to see her, get into the kitchen. She throw me out. She said, "Use too much butter, get out of it." No one was impressed by my
So you were good enough for the president, but you weren't good enough for your mother.
Right. So this is the woman that I dealt with when I learned how to cook. So that's the beginning of my cooking. And when I was 7, 8 years old, my brother and I helped my mother in the kitchen, and peeling potato or rinsing the bottle for the wine or, that type of thing. Always did. So, when I was 13 years old, I said, well, we had to go to school in France until age 14, usually for finish primary school. I think I took that exam when I was 12 or 13. I passed all the exam and I said, okay, I'm out. So I went there. I get into apprenticeship and then after I work in Paris. And at some point I decided to come to America for a year, maybe 2 years, just to learn the language. 60 years ago. So I'm still here.
That's where you but before I get to that, because there's a lot of interesting questions there, but I have to ask you, what was it like cooking for someone like Charles de Gaulle?
Well, you cook with Charles de Gaulle, for example. I dealt with Madame de Gaulle, who called me Petit Jacques, and
Petite
so
Jacques?
Petit Jacques. Please. I We met once a week at least to set up the menu for the week, and so when it came to state dinner, like Eisenhower and so forth, you have to deal with the protocol. So it's different to know how long the menu will be, whether it's a long menu, short one, whether anyone has any. I mean, you're not going to serve a ham to the prime minister of Israel or whatever. So know this or that. So the protocol will tell you all of this. It has to start, has to be this, watch out for this, that too. Then you submit 2 or 3 menu and you do that. But otherwise, with the menu were done with Madame de Gaulle, and certainly the Sunday menu, because we're avid practicing Catholic, and after church on Sunday, it was a family meal. So it was the son, the grandson, the cousin, so it was 8 or 10 people at least, which was done just the family. So at that point, it was what they liked to eat. So Madame de Gaulle tell me, I want this for that. I want a leg of lamb for the bread, not too rare because it's no good for him. Did that too, whatever.
Mm,
So this is the way things were, but it was another world at that time. Remember,
absolutely.
the cook at that time was really uh, at the bottom of the social scale. Television barely existed at that time, but yet there was a lot of magazine, newspaper, and which I could have been interviewed. I've never had an interview in France or whatever. That didn't exist. So when I came to America, it was another thing too. But again, you have to look at those things in the context of the time. So
Sure. But did you ever get to a point, or how long did, I guess would be the question, how long did it take you to get comfortable, or did you ever get comfortable preparing food for the president of your country?
well, the point is that when you learn how to cook, I had 3 years of apprenticeship. Then I work in Aix-les-Bains, then I work here, then eventually I end up in Paris, and I work at the Maxime, Plaza Athénée, the Fouquet's, and so forth. At the Plaza Athénée, we were 48 chefs in the kitchen, and there was 200. There was 200 employees, 48 chefs in the kitchen, and we served about 250, 300 people. So the proportion there was enormous, the amount of employees. So the point is that you never stop to learn because you work from a small restaurant, another small restaurant, a little one a bit better. Then you up in a place like the Plaza Athénée, then you work, they send you to the sauce department or the grill
Sure.
department. So you work from one part, the other part, and come back, look around again. So there is always, and certainly in the Michelin guide, you get into the 1, 2, or 3-star restaurant. There is always something else to learn there. Yeah.
Yeah. When you came to the States, that one of the people you met, obviously Julia Child, you had so many famous collaborations with her. Can you tell us about that relationship? What was that like?
Well, as I said, it was another world. I came here in 1959. In 1960, I knew the trinity of cooking in America, which was James Beard, Julia Child, and Craig Leborn, the New York Times. So the food world was very, very small. I didn't even know one, quote, American chef. All the chefs that I knew in New York, big restaurants, were either Italian, Spanish, French, Swiss, a lot of Swiss. Before the CIA, that is the Culinary Institute of America, and other schools started happening, there wasn't really many American chef, on the market, and now there is extraordinary chef. So when I started in New York, I worked at the Pavilion, which was considered maybe the greatest French restaurant in America, and it was a great restaurant. And but certainly in 1961, I was offered a job at the White House for Kennedy, and I went to work for Howard Johnson. So how could you do that? Well, again, you have to look at it in the context of the time. I didn't realize the potential of publicity or whatever. I'd never been interviewed by anyone or thing like this. So when I met Julia, I met her at Helen McCullough. Helen was the food editor of House Beautiful, and she lived next to me in Manhattan. I'd met her through Craig Claiborne, because Craig Claiborne did an article on the Pavilion, and Pierre Freinet was executive chef and me, and we met and we became friends. And he lived around, I live on 50th and he lived on 53rd, and I think Helen on 54, so on First Avenue. So I met Helen, and she was never married, and she was probably in her 60s already at the time. And so she kind of became my surrogate mother. Tell me, don't do this, do this, do that. And she's the one she was reviewing. She had been sent a beginning of the Mastering the Art of French Cooking by Julia Child, and she was going to review it. And she asked me to take a look at it, and I said, she's great. She said, well, the woman is coming to New York next week or the week after. You want to cook for her? I said, sure. So Julia came. That's how I met her. And we actually spoke French because her French was better than my English. And I came back from France, living there. And we cooked together even that first night, and we became friends. So at that time, Julia had never written for a magazine, that is, as the food editor or whatever, and she hadn't done a book, and she hadn't done television, so she was unknown. Totally, it was a different world, as I said.
Sure.
So we became friends for half a century or so.
Yeah, I mean, you guys had a wonderful relationship and television shows together. The other culinary legend, you mentioned James Beard. Well, how much of an influence was James Beard on you? Obviously you were established when you came to the States. It wasn't as if, but how much of an influence did he have on you?
Well, James Beard was a friend, and just like Julia Child, Beard would be the first one to say, "I'm not a chef, I never work in a restaurant," and Julia also. It's a different way of looking at things, the
Sure.
tradition. But certainly the one who influenced me the most was Craig LeBon,
Oh,
uh,
okay.
at the New York Times. And in terms of writing, and in terms, I was invited to his house all the time. So a very casual way. You get up in the morning, you push some eggs, you help yourself, lunch the same thing, then we all go swimming. In the afternoon, we go to the market and start cooking for the night. It was much more casual and, than inviting people in France, which was really structured, whatever we're going to do for lunch, dinner, this, that, too. So this was more of an American kind of way of life and so forth, casual. So because of this and other thing with Craig, his writing and so forth, yeah, he probably is the one who influenced me the most, certainly.
That's interesting. You've written over 30 books on cooking,
Right.
and your latest book, Cooking My Way: Recipes and Techniques for Economical Cooking, it offers insights and techniques to save money and time. It seems like with the price of groceries, it's almost like the perfect book for this time, right? With everybody trying to cut corners.
Right, but actually it was part of I wrote for the New York Times for almost 10 years, and I had a column called The Purposeful Cook,
Mhm.
which was to cook for a family of six for a minimal amount of money. So that was the idea there,
Okay.
originally too. So I have done 13 series on television. So each time there is a book. So I even did a book. I didn't do a series, but I did a book for the Cleveland Clinic for cardiac patients. Another book, I did 2 series on fast food my way to show people how to use the supermarket as a prep cook. That is, I go in the supermarket, I buy boneless, you know, skinless breast of chicken and pre-washed mushroom, pre-washed spinach, pre-sliced mushroom, whatever. I bring the package there when I was doing it on television. And with a non-stick pan, I think I could do 4 dishes to a whole dinner in like 25, 30 minutes because I have all of those things already kind of like a prep cook does. When you are in a
Sure.
professional kitchen, have someone who bone out the fish, bone out the chicken, slice the mushroom, chop the shallot. So someone order a piece of fish. I go there, well, I grab a bit of shallot, I grab the mushroom, I grab the fish in there, a bit of white wine, come to a boil, reduce to the dish is done in 5, 6 minutes because I have all that preparation for me. So it's a way of using the supermarket in those 2 series. And then I did a 3 series called Today's Gourmet, which was more. Then I did 2 series with my daughter Claudine, then with Julia. So it's also why I have so many books, because each time we did a series, it was on a specific area, and I did a book with that. So
You seem like you've also really done a nice job. And I know you have your daughter and your son-in-law helping, but you've done a really nice job, it seems, of sort of staying with technology and staying up with the internet and social media. How has that, do you feel like over the last 10 or 15 years kind of impacted being a
yes,
chef and recipes and all of that?
it does. I mean, and I'm not very good at it. I mean, I am on Facebook, and I say, but my daughter does it. I don't do it. So,
No, but
I mean, I do the cooking, and otherwise, yes, certainly I use my telephone, the computer, and so forth. But if I were to go back into the kitchen as a professional chef, as a chef now, I would have to adjust to this. I mean, the ordering is totally different than it used to be ordered through, through the internet and stuff like this. That before that didn't exist. So it's another world in the kitchen. Certainly, much better to follow your inventory, to know that you have only 6 pounds of carrot left over or whatever it is. When you do your buying, everything is on computer now and done. It makes it easier. Yeah. Yeah.
it feels like also, though, it would be easier to see what people are doing that might be of interest to you, or to share recipes that you've had. It feels like there's a lot more. It can be a lot more communal, and you've obviously done that with sharing your recipes online and with the videos that you've done. Seems like there's a whole opportunity to do that.
Yeah, but basically, when you work in a restaurant for a young chef, you want to go and work in that restaurant because he likes the food and he wants to learn by the chef there. So if I have to advise young chef, I said after cooking school, if you can afford it, go work with the best in the country, from Thomas Keller or Daniel Boulou, and you're not there to tell them what to do. You're there to learn. So, you kind of close your mind there, and you have to look at the food in the eye of that particular chef, with his or her sense of aesthetic, her sense of taste, even if it doesn't coincide with yours, doesn't really matter. First, he's not going to ask you your opinion. So you do it according to this and that one point of view. Then you work for another chef for 2 years, another point of view altogether. You do that with 3 or 4 chefs for like 8 or 10 years, then you've learned an enormous amount of material, that now you have to massage it to your own sense of taste, sense of aesthetic, and then you do your own stuff. So usually that's the way it works. So to answer your question, because the chef usually don't really look that much at what other chefs are doing. They
Hmm.
kind of are set in their way of doing. And I think that's the way it is. I remember when André Salzner was the chef at Lutèce, in New York, and for many years considered maybe the best restaurant in New York or in the country. Well, I could go there with my eye closed, and I knew that I would eat at Lutèce. The style of cooking of André Salzner was very specific French and Alsace, that part of France. So he was doing it according to and I think that's great because now there is too many young chefs who try to cover all base, and that's maybe because of the owner telling, well, next door they're serving tacos with this or that, the door after they're serving this. So you try to do that, and everyone end up doing the same thing, doing this thing because because it's in, so that at the time, as I said, going to Salzburg at Lutèce or whatever, you went there specifically because each style of cooking is what you like, that was.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's an interesting observation that chefs are trying to do everything and be really good at everything as opposed to maybe being good at something specific.
Well, you try to do it again. If the chef is happen to be the owner, then you do whatever you want. But often it's not the case. So, you have the boss to deal with and other people who say, no, we'd like to do this, that, and so forth. So, yeah, we got to follow that.
Do you have a favorite meal that you eat or like to prepare? Is there any particular meal that you enjoy preparing or eating?
No, there is many, from offal, pig's feet to try to a roast chicken to a couple of fried eggs to a hot dog or whatever. All food that I like and that I'll be happy to have it.
Finally, I know that you're a skilled painter. Are you painting anything, and do you have a favorite artist?
Ooh, I have many favorite artists, but when I come out of the museum, that artist will stay with me for a while, whether it's Picasso or Matisse or someone like this. But I have a new book coming out next year, which I did a book called The Art of Cooking in the 80s about. We did 34,000 picture in a 5 years period. It was
Wow.
before, it was the early 80s. And we kept 3,000 picture. We did 2 volume of 1,500 picture. Probably the best book that I've done to a certain extent professionally, and probably the one who sold the least of any book that I've done. So I did The Art of Cooking. So a few years ago, I did The Art of the Chicken. And at that point there, when I did The Art of the Chicken, I didn't want to do a cookbook. I wanted to do a book of I do a lot of illustration of chicken, drawing, and so forth. I wanted to do a book of my painting and illustration of chicken. And my publisher said, yeah, absolutely great. But as soon as I start sending picture of chicken, they say, can we have recipe with that? I don't want to do recipe. So I call it the art of the chicken because I talked about recipe like my mother used to do that, or I did that for the president in France. But those are verbal explanation and so forth. They are not detailed in terms of the list of ingredients and proportion or whatever. So it's just story about chicken. And so I have the art of cooking, then the art of the chicken, and now I have coming out the art of Jacques Pépin, because this one is 100 recipe and 100 paintings. So
Oh, that's interesting. So you're going to have a recipe that goes with each painting?
no,
Did they tie together?
that's a good point. I tried to, and it didn't really work. So, but I think, for example, that for dessert I use flowers only. Other one I use abstract for another category and so forth.
I'm kind of fascinated by this because I always think it's interesting when somebody who's accomplished in one field talks about another field. As a chef who is so accomplished, you're almost an artist with food. Does that help you in some ways appreciate the work of some of the artists that you admire? Their technique? Does it make you, do you feel like it helps you with your eye and the way you look at paintings?
Certainly, to a certain extent, but when you work in a professional kitchen as a chef, and probably shouldn't say that because I have 35 cookbook and uh, I never follow a recipe. So the point is that you work in a kitchen like at the Pavilion when I was there. You work out a few recipe, and let's say one of them is a chicken with morel or whatever, sauté. Okay, that become a specialty of the house there. So you have a recipe for that. But I mean, the recipe is in your head. You know what it looks like and so forth. So if I have an order that night, that same night of about 12 times, I have an order for that dish.
Sure.
Uh, those 12 times, it comes out exactly the same and it tastes exactly the same.
Hmm.
If, however, you were to take exactly what I did in 12 times, it would be different. Slightly different, but different. Why? Because I cooked with gas or electricity or with stainless steel or aluminum. The chicken is thicker or it's thinner. You know, it cannot be exactly the same. The oven is slightly hotter or not. So you start the recipe as it should be and taste and adjust and taste and adjust and taste and adjust. So it's always the same at the end. You don't even realize that it is different. But if you were to look at it, all the detail, yes, it would be small details which are different each time, you know,
Sure.
in order to come out the same. So in a painting, very often when I start a painting, I don't really know exactly where I'm going. But at some point, the painting usually take a hold of me and I react to it and I adjust that color or that shape, you know, so it's a kind of reaction that I have and which is usually automatic, you know, if you want the type of reaction. So there is a similarity there for me into working with that painting and adjusting to with the food that I may do and adjust and so forth.
Yeah, I always think I was thinking about this when I was reading about your painting and about how choice of colors is probably a little bit like choice of ingredients,
Right.
right? You know, giving an idea of what you want to convey on a canvas, probably a little bit like how you pull together ingredients.
Yes, and you have your favorite. I mean, my favorite color is probably blue. I use more blue than anything else. And just like in the kitchen, you have a certain type of butter, a certain chicken that you like more than any other.
Last question, and I'll let you go. Do you have a favorite painting or a painting that you return back to when you need some inspiration when you're in a museum or maybe enjoy looking at?
Not really, not one specifically. I mean, certainly, I always tell the story about 40 years ago here, at least 40 years ago. I had a friend of mine who lived in Stony Creek next door here. And he said, you want to do a showing of your painting? I said, yeah, I'd love to. So I bought like 3 or 4 cases of wine. I cook, my wife cook, another friend cooked. And we have had like 80 people, all our friends to come. We give them wine, we give them food. And each time people say, gee, I like that painting. Okay, you can have it too. So I never sold the painting. I got rid of 50 painting that time. To a point where my friend here, you know, Tom Hopkins, he lives in town and he's been my photographer to working on my book for 41 years, I think, so a long, long
Wow.
time. So about 7, 8 years ago, he said, I'm going to do an art site for you. So he did an art site, and I have a Jacques Pépin art site now. And he said more giclée and painting probably than cookbook. I've never done that before. Again, I've been very lucky. I have that Facebook that my daughter did. I would never have done that myself. I have the foundation that my son-in-law did. I have the art site that Tom did. All of that, of course, it's me, but I would never have done it by myself. So I've been very lucky.
Well, I could go on obviously forever here, but I know we only have we're out of time. I appreciate so much you taking a few minutes to speak with me, and we look forward to having you at Rosecliff September 22nd.
Yeah, well, I'm looking for it too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacques.
Good day. Thank you.